So, boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. Establish boundaries and keep boundaries. I can remember hearing those words so many times while I was doing some counselling training. And then again, establish boundaries and keep boundaries when I started my training for ordination. Boundaries, keep your boundaries. Well, today, I believe both our readings are talking about breaking down boundaries. You heard that? Breaking down boundaries. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to break down a boundary? Are you sat there feeling a bit uncomfortable? Or are you silently shouting for joy and wanting to jump up and say, yippee? Either way, don't worry. God challenges us to break boundaries, the right boundaries though. The readings we've just heard are all about how genuine faith breaks boundaries and it leads to action. Today's readings, they challenge us to live out our faith in ways that reflect God's inclusive love and also active compassion. Like the woman in the reading from Mark's Gospel, we are called to break boundaries with persistent faith. Unlike the man who was healed by Jesus, we are invited to be opened to God's work in our lives. And then in our reading from James, it reminds us that our faith must be demonstrated through our actions. So today is all about boundaries, those invisible lines that we often draw around our lives, and how our faith invites us to step over those lines. The verses in our gospel reading and also in the book of James, they give us an awful lot to think about when it comes to how we live out our faith, especially though in the way we treat each other. So let's start by talking about boundaries. We all have them, don't we? Some boundaries are good though. They protect us and they help us to stay safe. But other times we draw lines, boundaries that keep us from connecting with people who are different from us. Now, these may be cultural boundaries, social, or even personal comfort zones. I invite you to have a think about a time when you walked into a room full of strangers. How did you feel? Did you cringe, want to just back out? Did you wander around? Did you start speaking to people? It's really easy for us to gravitate towards people who look like us or who seem familiar. We naturally feel more comfortable with people who are like us. But sometimes this comfort can turn into a boundary that keeps us, it stops us from reaching out to others. And this is when we need to break the barriers down. In the Gospel, we see Jesus doing something really, really interesting. There he is in a place called Tyre, which is outside of Israel. It's essentially Gentile territory. So this is already Jesus stepping over a boundary. He's in a place where Jews would not normally go, interacting with people that they wouldn't normally interact with. Now, a woman from this region, she comes to Jesus. Now, by standards of the day, she's an outsider, a Gentile, a woman, someone with a sick daughter. She asks Jesus to heal her daughter, and Jesus gives a response that might seem surprising. He says something about children and dogs. It sounds harsh at first, doesn't it? But the woman doesn't give up. She believes that even a little bit of Jesus' power is enough to heal her daughter. What's amazing here is that Jesus honours her faith. He crosses the boundaries of cultural and religious norms, and he heals her daughter. It's like Jesus is showing us that God's love, it isn't confined to any one group or any one place. It's for everyone, everywhere. Now, moving on to our reading from James. I love the book of James. It's always about action, isn't it? And this bit is about breaking down social boundaries. James talks about a kind of boundary, another kind, about favouritism, a boundary of favouritism. He's writing to people who were playing favourites in the church, giving special treatment to the rich and ignoring the poor. James isn't having any of that, though. He calls it out as wrong because it goes against the heart of the gospel. James then makes a huge, bold statement. He talks about faith without works as being dead. In other words, it's not enough to say we believe in Jesus if that belief doesn't change how we treat people, especially those who might be on the other side of social boundaries. So let's just stop there. Have a think. Have you ever found yourself gravitating towards people who seem important or have something to offer you, while maybe overlooking someone who seems to have less? James is saying that real faith crosses those boundaries and sees everyone as valuable in God's eyes. So, what do these stories mean for us today? How can we live out our faith in a way that crosses over those boundaries? Well, first, we don't have to make big, dramatic changes, you'll be pleased to hear, to start crossing those boundaries. It can be as simple as saying hello to someone new, as simple as smiling at someone you pass in the street, or sitting with someone new in church, or listening to someone else's story without judgment. These small steps can make a huge difference. So yes, this may challenge our comfort zones, and if we're honest, it's really easy, isn't it, to get stuck in our routines and stick with the people who make us feel comfortable. But what if we started to see those moments of discomfort as opportunities for growth? What if crossing a boundary actually leads to a deeper understanding of God's love? So let's challenge ourselves to step out of our comfort zones. It's so vital for us to remember what James says about faith and works. Our faith should be visible in the way we treat each other. If we really believe in the love of Jesus, that love should push us to break down any walls that have been built up, whether they're based on race, culture, status, sexuality, anything. Break those walls down. Break those boundaries. In both of these passages, we see that Jesus and the early Christians were called to cross the boundaries, to love beyond the lines that society often draws. And that goes for us today. Let's be people who live beyond those lines, who see others the way that Jesus does. And let's be people who put our faith into action by loving and serving everyone, no matter who they are. So as we go about our week, let's keep an eye open for those boundaries in our lives, where the lines we've drawn and how we cross them in faith and love. Remember, Jesus crossed every boundary to reach us, so let's do the same for others. Amen. You'll be pleased, not too many this morning, but just a reminder that the parish office is closed this week. So if there is anything, please contact either myself or Matthew. Now, we've got a busy few weekends ahead of us. Okay, so sitting comfortably. Next Saturday, the 14th, is the beating of the bounds, which Michael and Ian, I believe, have pulled together. Now, if you want to know anything more about that, please do speak to Michael. And the other thing that's happening next Saturday is we are having our family fun afternoon, and you are all invited. Please come along. It will start at 3. There's lots of exciting games to do. There will be some refreshments. And also, we're going to have a barbecue at 5 o'clock. If you would like to come along to the barbecue, I just encourage you to sign the form at the back, please, so that we know how many we're catering for. So that's next Saturday, the 14th. Barbecue is at 5 o'clock. The next thing is Sunday. We have our afternoon teas, and I'm assuming, Natalie, do we need help with that? Cakes, baking, please, and actually if you can come along and spare some time to help serve those refreshments, that would be wonderful. I'd also like to take the opportunity today to for us all to just remember this week, obviously our children, our young people, our teachers, our administration staff at school have all started back after their summer break. So please do include them in your prayers this week as they go back to school. Some started last week, and as we start going back into the collective worship as well, which is always an honour to do. Natalie, I think you'd like a quick word.
So I'm sure most of you have heard about the wedding fair that we've got coming up on the 5th of October. It's on from 11 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's incredibly exciting. There's 2 reasons why we're doing it. The first reason is fundraising. We are hoping we're going to fundraise quite a lot of money from this, so we're incredibly excited. The second reason is also to bring more weddings into the church, which would just be incredible. I mean, we're all biased, aren't we? This is the most incredible place for a wedding. And we want to showcase that. We want everybody to see just how beautiful St Mary's is. If you would like to help us on the day, there's a few jobs that we have. The first one that I would love some help with is people to help visitors with parking. So we're only asking for sort of 45 minutes to an hour. If we can have sort of 4 or 5 people maybe spread throughout just to help people with parking. We will have signs to hopefully, fingers crossed, get everybody driving the correct way around to church. So we don't have, as we all know, it can be a bit of a nightmare, can't it? So we're hoping to avoid that. So if we can have a couple of people to help us with that, that would be amazing. The second thing that we would love help with is some refreshments, so baking and also some serving. When we did the wedding dress exhibition, the fundraising from that, from Tees, I can't remember what it was, but it was incredible, wasn't it? It was amazing how much money was raised from the cakes, teas and coffees. So if anybody would like to help with that, that would be phenomenal. Last one, who here's on Facebook? Does anyone here at Facebook? Okay, this morning I shared a video on our Facebook page, on the St Mary's Facebook page. If you could share that, that would be incredible. Let's get it out as much as we can to all of our friends and family that are local and share. If anyone wants me to show you how to do that afterwards, pop over and see me and I'll show you on my phone. Okay, thank you.